My question today is whether it is time to allow professional cyclists to get into randonneuring and allow participation in future Paris-Brest-Paris events.
Be my guest, be safe, enjoy, and go.
This question has been prompted by the recent discussions I've had with some of my fellow cyclists. The current status of randonneuring in our province of Saskatchewan in Canada is that the number of cyclists registered with our club and those that have indicated their intention to ride the Paris-Brest-Paris this year has not seen any significant growth in a period of almost more than 30 years. At our recent annual general meeting, we discussed possible ways to attract cyclists to the discipline of randonneuring, and there were lots of helpful suggestions. So with these in mind, I approached some of my fellow cyclists, most of whom are much stronger and faster than I am, and I asked them if they might consider either riding some of the brevets or participating in future Paris-Brest-Paris events. The answers to these questions all had a similar theme. Yes, there was knowledge of the discipline of randonneuring, and they thought that this discipline had an interesting concept and was definitely a challenge. However, they did not yet want to commit to the discipline of randonneuring as they were still racing and wanted to be involved in a competitive and a more in vogue activity, such as either road racing, mountain biking, or participate in the new kid on the block riding activity called gravel bike racing. However, they may consider participating in randonneuring in the future once their current racing ambitions had been fulfilled and they wanted to do something more leisurely. So this got me thinking, what is the perception many cyclists have of randonneurs? Do they consider us to have the same level of dedication and motivation in our discipline as they have in other cycling disciplines? Or do they consider us to be nothing more than cycle tourists with a focus on recreation and leisure? In other words, a discipline that you want to retire to when you want something that is slower paced, gentler, and more fun, and allows you to do some sightseeing. Now, in my short career as a randonneur, I can definitely say that this perception is far from reality. I've experienced some of my most severe mental and physical fatigue and experienced the most intense physical pain of any of my sporting activities in randonneuring. And to qualify this statement, I've previously raced on the road, raced on the track, participated in multi-stage mountain bike races, and participated in many ultra-distance running events. And while I may not have won any of these events, I've always pushed myself to the limit. And at that limit, my body had never felt as battered as after participating in some of my randonneuring activities.
Welcome back, guys.
I suspect we may look slightly comical as randonneurs with our reflective vests, our mudguard mounted bicycles and cumbersome bikes, and we also probably look a little bit shabby and less groomed after riding continuously for almost 90 hours. We probably don't have that sleek, glitzy and groomed appearance other racing disciplines have after blitzing through a race of 160 kilometers in excess of 40 kilometers per hour. But do we need to display a more exciting image to attract more cyclists to the discipline of randonneuring? My understanding is that the Paris-Brest-Paris originally started as a professional event way back in 1891, but was transformed into a purely amateur event almost 60 years later. With the transformation from professional to amateur participation, the emphasis in randonneuring was that of the ideal of encouraging participation and avoiding competition. Recognition was given to everyone that was able to complete the event within a specified time period, and with this, a very egalitarian discipline within cycling was born.
Next one is Ronnie and Regan, another one of our team, Australia and South Africa, Regan Orense and Ronnie Etsagonde. Welcome on, gentlemen, 6 hours and 28 minutes.
Now, as I've said earlier, I have been very fortunate to participate in other cycling and running disciplines in which professional and amateur athletes were allowed to participate in the same event simultaneously. In all of these disciplines, there was a seeding process to allow athletes who intended to complete the event the fastest to depart first, and those that simply wanted to challenge themselves to complete within the allotted time to start slightly later. The majority of the athletes that would try to complete these events in the fastest time possible were often professional, and recognition was often given to the person who completed the event first as being the winner. However, the competition that took place at the front of the field often did not have any impact on the performance or the prestige of the athletes further back in the field who were able to complete the events within the allotted time. In addition, the events were not any easier for the backmarkers, and their accomplishments were not in any way diminished. Rather, everyone that completed these events was either given a medal or had their names entered into the record books in the same way that the professionals did, and without any discrimination. The winners, of course, received prizes, most often financial rewards, that allowed them the fiscal stability to continue their sporting careers. I've never heard of any of the other participants ever begrudge the winners of their prize money. In contrast, I've only heard words of admiration from those professionals that eventually retired and then continued to participate in these races as amateurs while juggling the responsibilities of real life for their fellow amateurs competing in these combined professional and amateur events. What the involvement of the professionals in these events did provide was certainly to elevate the profile of the event and to provide role models for current and future participants. And I can say that for myself, being able to participate and compete in an event at the same time as that of the professionals certainly provided me a lot of motivation to participate. In addition, I've never felt that my personal achievements in any of these events were in any way inferior to those of the professionals or diminished in any way by my fellow participants because my results were not at the same level as that of the professionals. And for many of these events, I became aware of them purely because of the participation of the professional athletes in those events and the increased profile of these events in the visual, the printed press, and on social media. The participation of the professionals in these events provided that glitzy and glamorous image that attracted me in the first place, and I suspect many other athletes would also be attracted to participate in these events because of the participation of the professionals.
Okay, so greetings to Team HPL in Canada, and keep on riding and enjoy the riding on gravel and mountain bike.
At this point, it may be worthwhile to determine how do you distinguish between a professional cyclist and an amateur cyclist. My understanding of this distinction is quite limited, and I, of course, would welcome correction in the comments. From what I understand, the defining aspect of a professional cyclist is that the cyclist has to be paid a certain amount of money for their athletic activities. So it's not the intensity at which they train, not the amount of time that they're able to dedicate to training, and it's also not their level of accomplishment in these events that defines them as being professional. It stands to reason that someone that is provided an income or salary that allows them to train at that level and participate in high-level events is more likely to perform consistently better than somebody that has to split their time allocated for training and racing with time required to earn a living from a regular job. That is not to say all professionals don't have a second job to generate some income to finance their primary careers. But this definition of a professional athlete does have its limitations. If the definition is purely based on whether a salary is provided or not, then it appears quite myopic. I've seen performances in the discipline of randonneuring that are certainly at the level you would consider the cyclist to be a professional, such as completing a 1,000-kilometer ride in less than 24 hours and completing the Paris-Brest-Paris event in less than 43 hours, certainly would require some preparation equal to or in excess of that required of other professional cyclists. So what kind of amateur cyclist could possibly train at this level to produce these professional level results? Perhaps somebody with a partial sponsorship, or somebody that has retired early and comfortably, or somebody that has a very supportive family or spouse. So in this situation, these people can train at the level of a professional and produce the results associated with professionals, although without the required remuneration, and therefore still consider themselves to be amateur cyclists. These Observations, however, make me concerned that prohibiting professional cyclists from participating in randonneuring events while celebrating amateur cyclists that produce professional level results may be slightly hypocritical. Is it perhaps not time to reconsider the decision to exclude professional cyclists from randonneuring and perhaps introduce a hybrid event that embraces both professional and amateur cyclists? Here, the professional level amateurs may be able to ride with the professional cyclists and still produce the same level of professional results. And I don't suspect that any of the less competitive riders such as myself at the back of the field will feel any less recognized. Rather, I think it is likely that a change in policy regarding professional cyclists may modernize the image of the discipline and help to attract more participants to this amazing sport. As for the politics of allowing professionals in randonneuring, I am certain that this is very complex. To the best of my knowledge, randonneuring is not a Union Cyclist International or UCI sanctioned activity. Will allowing professionals to participate in randonneuring require regulation by the UCI? And would that detract from the autonomy of the current randonneuring authorities? I don't know, and I don't know how easy it would be to perhaps integrate these two bodies. Furthermore, I don't know if there's even much interest in randonneuring from the professional teams either. The professional cycling teams have an extremely tight schedule with multiple events all across the world. It appears that the interest from professional racing teams to encourage participation in racing disciplines other than road races is perhaps limited to the Education Firsts, Lachlan Morton, and Ineos Grenadiers, Pauline Prevot. However, with the correct incentives, it is likely that professional teams might be interested in participating in randonneuring. Furthermore, providing a professional category may just allow some of our current phenomenal endurance athletes, such as local Canadian randonneur and 24-hour record holder Megan Hakkinen, to actually race professionally and finance her racing from prize money, and perhaps even attract substantial sponsorship. I'm sure that there will be many experts that will have greater insights into these aspects than which I can provide. On the other hand, I'm also aware that randonneuring is growing exponentially in popularity in certain parts of the world, such as the Philippines, under the leadership of Carmela Pearson. There are frequent reports of more than 600 cyclists participating in some of the events that she has organized. And this without the participation of professional cyclists to make the discipline more attractive to local Filipino randonneurs. I think there may be merit in studying Camilla's approach to success at promoting the discipline of randonneuring in the Philippines. In conclusion, I have a full-time occupation and I'm a dedicated weekend warrior. I have no intentions to become a professional cyclist myself. My primary interest is to look at ways in which the discipline of randonneuring can be grown, given the competition for the interests of cyclists by other disciplines such as road racing, gravel biking, and mountain biking. The inclusion of professional cyclists in events such as the Paris-Brest-Paris may be just one solution to increasing its popularity and modernizing its image. However, there may be other ways to grow the discipline held secret in some of the Eastern countries. Let me know in the comments if you think that there's a role for professional cyclists in randonneuring and if this will have a positive effect on the image of randonneuring and its popularity, or if you think it may have the total opposite effect. And please let me know if there are any other insights you have as to how we can go about growing the discipline of randonneuring. Please like if you've enjoyed this video and subscribe if you want to see similar content in the future. Until the next time we meet, please ride safely.